Oh, it looks like we're live, so that only leaves it for me to say hello and welcome to a fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, the Sunday streaming edition. And I don't know how fun-filled this one will be because I just thought I'd be honest with you. Not that I've been dishonest before, but this is, a level of honesty that I think that most people have come not to expect in this crazy, wacky world of lo-fi streaming. And that's I have no idea what to talk about, and it's not the first time either. Um, and this sort of got me thinking how people who do this sort of thing regularly, some even do it professionally, how do they think of things to talk about on a regular basis? Well, maybe they correct the mistake of doing it so frequently, because the more you do something, the fewer ideas out there you have access to. But then we get into a philosophical conundrum about whether there's a finite amount of ideas, a finite amount of concepts, or if a concept is something that can be invented as you go along. And so long as the human imagination exists, there's a limited or an unlimited, rather, number of topics about which to discuss. So that's an interesting point as well. Then there's the sort of issue of sliding scale originality. What really is originality? Should someone just talk about what a lot of other people have talked about before? What about a subject that everyone's talking about now? This is something we tend to call news. And surely, if there's anything worth discussing, it's news. But then again, if everyone is discussing it, maybe it's getting a bit boring. Should we talk about music at all? Should we segregate ourselves either into the playing music side of the Venn diagram or the listening side of the Venn diagram, with a few lucky or very busy people occupying that middle space? That's an interesting question, but one of the ways that we, in fact, discover new music, which is really the ultimate point of this channel, is in fact by discussing it and learning from that self inquiry, learning from the comments and ideas of others. And there's the question of, well, what about requests? What about a topic that someone requests for you to do? And this is a very interesting one because, like many a radio DJ, which I once was before me, I do like the idea of taking requests. But taking a request for a theme or for a discussion is very different than taking a request for a record that you have sitting on the shelf. So when I do take requests for various topics, they're usually on more conceptual or thematic matters about which almost anyone who listens to music in one way, shape, form, capacity, or another has an opinion. But when it comes to requests for individual artists or bands, that can be a bit more difficult because while one time out of 10, it might be someone that I've heard of and that I like, nine of those other times out of 10, pardon me, nine of those other times out of 10, it's someone I haven't heard of. It's not necessarily someone I don't like, but it will be someone that I haven't heard of. And that sort of begs the question, why are you asking me to discuss someone that you know about and I don't? Shouldn't you be discussing them to me and informing me about why you think an artist is worth discovering, worth digging into, worth learning about? And this sort of made me think of one of the many corrupting features of the news industry. We all know that legacy media, or as some call it, mainstream media, has bit the dust, but it's still in one shape, form, or another clinging on for dear life, thanks to a few industries that support its advertising revenue streams, mainly because they can get PR and disguise it as good old fashioned ads. But it did make me think that even at the level of a vlogger or a blogger or a live streamer, there is such a thing as a slow news day. What is there to talk about on a slow news day? Well, I suppose it depends on what you consider news. There's always something happening, but when that thing is less than significant, we tend to use language in such a way as to indicate our lack of interest in it. Oh, there's nothing happening. Well, is there? There's lots happening. People are being born. People are dying. People somewhere are building a fence. People somewhere else are tearing down a fence. Someone's car broke down. Someone else is fixing a car. It might even be the same model, but it's doubtful that it's happening in the same place. Somewhere a war is going on. somewhere a truce between at least two people who didn't like each other is going on. So there's always something going on. But when it comes to interpersonal relationships, we in the commentary business, and I guess that's what we can call it, amateur, professional, and all those in between, we tend to focus on things outside of the micro environments that we don't have access to. That's one of the reasons we invent fiction, and it's one of the reasons that fiction is different than the news. We're naturally interested in the tension, the drama, the highs and lows that go on between strangers in their personal lives. But the fact that they are strangers means that we don't know them. And unless they act out their entire existence on camera, which increasingly people called IRL streamers do, then we don't have access to that information. What do we do then to satisfy that need that not all of us, but a lot of us, according to market trends, have? Well, we invent fiction. We use our own experiences and observations to try to extrapolate what a situation might be that happens behind someone else's closed doors. That, though, doesn't apply to this channel because this channel is only dealing with fact. And even when we're mistaken, a mistaken fact is a kind of fiction, but an unintentional kind of fiction rather than one that is written for the purposes of creating some sort of emotive response from the reader, listener, watcher, or what have you. So, getting back to the fact that there's nothing really to talk about today, at least for me. Is this the fault of the world? Is it my fault? Is it anyone's fault at all? Why do we want to assign blame? Well, we want to assign blame because when something goes wrong, it it sort of resolves a feeling of angst that we have if we can blame it on a certain behavior rather than a random act of God or pure happenstance. So if let's say the car runs out of fuel, well, it's someone's fault for not filling it up, or is it the manufacturer's fault for not building a big enough fuel tank, which increasingly is what car manufacturers are doing? Could it maybe be both? If it's a stupid and irresponsible driver, maybe it's their fault for not filling it up, because no matter how big the fuel tank is, they still wouldn't keep it at a certain level of fluid petroleum in the tank before it gets to that dangerous red line level. Now, why am I talking about any of these aspects, relevant, irrelevant, or in between, about human life on a music show? A music show on a music channel. It's because I'm sort of trying to kill time. And again, while I'm being a bit sarcastic, I probably just shouldn't have done a stream today, but I kind of did want to explore these thoughts because it's not the first time that I've got up and thought, well, today's one of these days I do a live stream and I literally have nothing to talk about, which sort of begs the question, well, what happens when you do have something to talk about? And the short answer to that is I do a stream on it, but obviously, someone who would be rhetorically asking that question would be doing so in a way that is a bit more prodding and a bit more curious. So sometimes ideas, usually thematic ideas about music, the way it's played, who plays it, who consumes it, it just sort of pops into my head. Could be the night before when I'm asleep, or when I'm trying to sleep, or when I'm in the shower, or when I'm just walking around, or it could be I'm sitting down consciously thinking, well, I've got this stream to do. I wonder what I should talk about. And sometimes you can force yourself into an idea, even though the best ideas come when you're asleep or in the shower or walking around or things like that, when you're not intending to have a good idea. Intending to have a good idea is really just a form of a behavior. Having an idea applies, at least when you take it to its most maximalist definitional identity, it implies some sort of unconscious or preconscious behavior, something metaphysical as opposed to behavioral. Hold on, water break. And so, what are the other ways that I think of things to talk about when, in fact, I have something to say? Well, sometimes I cheat. And by that, I mean I look at various websites called On This Day or On This Week in Music. I use that for inspiration. Someone I admire or like is having a birthday this week. Let's talk about them. Why? Why not? Oh, look, an album was released on this week in 19 something 5. I like that album. I'll talk about why I like it and talk maybe about why I think it's significant. So it's that combination. And occasionally there'll be something in the actual news that is going on. Someone's going on tour, someone made a new album, someone's unfortunately died, all of these types of things. And then I might use that as a topic as well. And I actually said something that maybe gives me an idea for another stream, but since we're here now, and we're already wasting each other's time, I might as well get into it now. So, what kind of artists do I talk about? They're mostly artists I like or love. Occasionally, it will be an artist I respect, even if I'm not particularly into their music. I think that they're worthy of respect for one reason or another. But typically, again, 9 times out of 10, if you thinking numerically, it's an artist I either like or love. Now, why do I talk about those artists? I said a few moments ago that I like them or that they're significant. Well, what's significant in music? Um, you could say the easy answer is that they changed music, but at the end of the day, very few people did change music. Some did. Wagner and Beethoven are two that we talk about a lot on this channel because of how prolifically they changed music, and they were able to do so while entertaining audiences with beautifully emotive music at the same time. But what if something is just plain good? And why do we as a society tend to not value things that are just plain good as much as we value things that have some sort of transformative effect on a given sector of our human existence, whether it's music or anything else? We talk about the people who invented the car and who invented the plane. What about the people who made the car better, faster, more comfortable, better handling? Planes that can carry more people, planes that can go faster, planes that are safer. Why don't we talk about those people? And it sort of brings me back to Spengler's analysis of the figure of zero, and how the ancient Greeks, particularly the wise Athenians, didn't have this, and so they thought in a more infinite manner, but without actually conceiving of infinity. They thought of the great philosophical truths of life and spirit as things that were allegories that could help us to better understand reality, where medieval and then later modern European man borrowed the zero from the Arabs, who themselves borrowed it from the Hindus. And because of that, your modern European and modern Western man tends to think of life as a sort of timeline with a kind of finality, this Faustian spirit. And maybe that's why we're so sort of neurotic about trying to pin down the beginning of a timeline, even in the arts, which is harder to pin anything down compared to something mechanical like the invention of a plane. So we try to look at things as though, okay, this person invented something in this year, and it went away when this other event happened. When that really isn't true. It's certainly not true in the arts. And you could even say for the plane, yes, the Wright brothers invented what we consider the modern plane, or did they? Doesn't look like the planes that are at the airport now. Does a little bit, but it has a lot of distinct differences. And what about Da Vinci with his various attempts at flying machines, and other ancient Greeks long before the Italian Renaissance who were attempting to do the same? Maybe it's all just a bit of a series of allegories. And the most important thing isn't even the invention, but when it hit a critical mass of usership. In other words, when the plane became something reliable enough, ubiquitous enough, and comparatively affordable enough that it became a feature that most people in an industrial society could partake in. When they need to go somewhere that the car would be less convenient, or the train, or the boat, even. Although I quite like the concept of boats and indeed the reality of boats. So, how did we get onto planes? Well, I think it's because we were talking about the concept of musical significance. And apart from originality, or more importantly, the invention of some new genre, or some new instrument, or some new technology for reproducing music, or some new way of conceiving of music, I think that music is significant if it's good. Now, if one person thinks it's good, that's good enough. But if a critical mass of people think that a music is good, that means that it's good for many people. What does that mean? Does that make it good objectively? Not really. Why? Because if you want to be ultra objective and hold music to such standards, you have to grade those in terms of those precise standards rather than popularity. And if you don't believe in any sort of objective value judgments when deciding the characteristics of a piece of music, then that wouldn't matter in the first place. So, good for a lot of people makes something significant, but it doesn't necessarily make it a great piece of music. Because ultimately, the definition of a great piece of music either needs to be entirely personal or entirely objective. And I'll leave it, water break, and I'll leave it entirely up to you which one of those two things that you decide. Maybe you think it's a little bit of both. But when enough people like a piece of music or an artist, that makes it significant because it goes from being an interpersonal event like the dramatic happenstance between two individuals that we talked about earlier when we were discussing the definition of fiction. It transforms it from that into something that is a societal event, in the same way that the Super Bowl is a societal event. Why? Because a large group of people watch it. And when a large group of people know a particular piece of music, whether it's a song, whether it's an album, whether it's an instrumental work, whether it's an artist, then it becomes an interesting social event. And the music itself, for some, actually takes on a position in society that is almost non let's call it a musical. It's not non-musical because the music is still the essence of what the object or the phenomena is about which we're speaking, but it takes on something else because it's more of a point of reference. It's more of a lubricant that makes social interaction improved, or at least is intended to do so. It's the kind of thing that makes a lot of people in the music community resentful. You know, the guy, I like these people before they were big. Well, what does that mean? Did they gain weight? No, it means that the music went from something where a few people listened to it for the sake of enjoyment or other emotive experiences that the music was imparting to them, and instead the music through popularity expanded into something that was a social event. I remember where I was when I heard that first single from Fleetwood Mac, Rumors, on the radio. Oh yeah, you like Fleetwood Mac, I like Fleetwood Mac. Neither of us know much about them, neither of us can play any of the instruments featured on the album, and in fact none of us can even really remember the lyrics, but we know that we like it, and that's enough because there is that social lubricant that creates social cohesion. But the guy in the corner is resentful because he was listening to the band before Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks joined, making them into something that was, yes, for many, both musically enjoyable, but also this social event. And where did we go? How did we end up in this place? Oh, yes, we're talking about what makes a musical act or artist significant or insignificant. So it depends really on your definition. If it's significant to you as an individual, it probably means that the art itself, the music in this case, gives you some sort of emotional quality that you couldn't get elsewhere, or even if you could, that it's still something unique enough that it holds a special place in your memory, which is sufficient then to give it a special place in your heart. You could also say that it's significant because it becomes something that's widely popular. And going back to the question that brought this up in the first place, what kind of music do we discuss on this channel? The answer is a little bit of everything. Sometimes it's stuff that I like that I know very few other people like. Sometimes it's stuff that I like a little, but I know that a lot of people also like it a little. And every now and then it's something that I like a lot, that a lot of people also like a lot. Perhaps the rarest feat of all in the world of music, and one that I doubt we can replicate because of the recent changes, or comparatively recent changes to musical consumption trends. So maybe I should do these streams where I have absolutely nothing to talk about a bit more, because as it turns out, nothing really is something, because nothing from nothing leaves nothing. You've got to have something, as Billy Preston said. I like Billy Preston a lot, by the way, and I have done some videos about him. And so, after about 19 minutes, I guess I'll sign off on a stream about absolutely nothing where I had nothing to say, but still managed to talk for 19 minutes, which really challenges the notions of what nothingness is. It maybe even challenges the notion that nihilism means nothing. Nihilism really might be the rejection of that which is tangible and the acceptance and even the fetishization of that which is not. But certainly we would not do any of that here because we try to keep it cheerful, even when we have absolutely nothing to discuss at all, as we didn't today. Hopefully, next weekend, I'll have something actual to talk about. I've got 5 days to think about it, but I'll be doing other things in those 5 days. But until then, as always, like, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Take care. How do I turn this off?